was a Penny Mordaunt supporter. How big a miss, in your view, was it that there wasn't one of the outsiders, whether it was Penny, Tom or Kemi, and we had Justin Tomlinson on just a moment ago saying he had wished that we'd had at least the debate around Kemi versus the other. How big a miss for the Conservative Party was that to not have one of them on the final ballot paper?
Well, hi, Alistair. That's the $1 million question. I mean, personally, I'm very keen that I don't come across as sour grapes, but what's important for me is that the membership has a choice. They've got a choice right now between two very good candidates. Of course, I would have wanted to see Penny Mordaunt in the final. I would also have wanted the membership to have had a choice on Penny Mordaunt because I think that she was an excellent candidate, is an excellent candidate, and will be a fine Prime Minister if she ever gets the chance.
I'm intrigued to know why you didn't get, given you wanted an outsider. I'm assuming, therefore, that is a personal assessment of the merits and arguments of Penny Mordaunt, and she's been good enough to express them on this programme a couple of times. I know her quite well, and I agree with a lot of what you just said. But I'm also slightly intrigued, given your background, why you didn't go for Tom, because Tom was also an outsider, but like you, has a military background.
I know Tom really well. He's a good friend. I think, if I'm being entirely objective, I think it's his lack of ministerial experience, which I think led me away from him. But he would be another very fine Prime Minister if he ever gets the chance, and I'll be happy to support him. I think, to answer your question, Alistair, directly, Penny for me was the exciting, fresh candidate. Her ideas resonated with me. She phoned me about 2 weeks ago now on a Saturday morning and said, would you please join my campaign team? I asked her two questions. Firstly, do you have a plan? Yes, she said, I do have a plan. And secondly, will your campaign be fought cleanly, with integrity, without baggage? Yes, she said, and she was true to both of those to the last. And as I said, disappointing it's not longer through, but we've got to get behind the two candidates now to ensure that we get the right Prime Minister.
And on that point, how do you assess the economic pitches, which is where we started the conversation with Joanne Nadler, who you know is a Conservative, although she's wavering slightly at the moment, but has worked in the upper reaches of government for John Major and folk like that, and Trevor Kavanagh and others. This choice between Rishi Sunak, who I think is slightly more in the Thatcher position of defeat inflation, then cut the taxes, versus Liz, cut the taxes now, get on with it, because folk out there are really hurting from the cost of living crisis. Does either of those positions tempt you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because they both offer merits. And if I'm being brutally frank, there are inconsistencies in policy areas of both of them. I mean, Rishi Sunak voted to leave the European Union. Liz Truss voted to remain, but she's now seen as being the Brexiteer, the firm Brexiteer candidate, and certainly the candidate around which most of the Brexiteers are aligning, the ERG, for example. I think personally that pragmatism is what matters right now. You can't promise lots of tax cuts. I think Liz is probably well advised on this, and that her view is that if you lower tax, then you'll increase growth. You'll incentivise entrepreneurship and increase growth. And we've seen many times in the past where lowering corporation tax in particular has led to that increase in revenue. But by the same token, we have got to fight inflation. So my concern with Liz's policies would be that they could be inflationary. So at this point in time, the jury's out. And I would urge people watching your show just to listen to what the candidates are saying, and those who can vote accordingly.
Very sage advice indeed, and I appreciate it. They've also got to broaden the agenda out. That was something that Joanne Nadler said earlier on in the programme. And her book, which you may or may not know, is Too Nice to Be a Tory. She comes from a wing of the party that I suspect you would be quite comfortable in, because you've written about the need right now to be exploring issues such as education more generally, special needs within education, homelessness, something that I have a passion for as well. Haven't heard a word substantially on any of those sorts of subjects yet.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. I mean, interestingly enough, special needs education and homelessness are issues that are very important to me personally. And of course, the panoply of policies extends far beyond the economy. But at this point in time, with the cost of living crisis so acute, it is right, I think, that the candidates focus on economic policy. And the other point I make as well, of course, is that both of the candidates will reserve the right to continue with those policies in Boris Johnson's government that have been pretty successful. And we are investing more, especially in education. During the pandemic, we did an awful lot to eradicate homelessness. There's more we can do, I think, in terms of our socially aware policies. But ultimately, everything costs money. The country's £2.2 trillion in the red at the moment, and therefore it is right, in my view, that the election will be won and lost on economic issues.
Yeah. The final point is this, that Justin said that he sensed amongst his association ordinary members of the Conservative Party, big power as far as you guys are concerned, clearly, but there was still a lingering anger about what happened to Boris Johnson, whether it was Rishi as the assassin or Liz staying loyal for too long, other candidates whipping up their own campaigns in the back rooms. Can the party move on from that, or will that anger linger amongst ordinary members of the Conservative Party when they come to make those marks on the ballot paper?
Alistair, it's a very fair question. I mean, MPs are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And look at my inbox and my correspondence over the last 12 months. I mean, I've had vitriol from those who don't like Boris Johnson and think he should not be in government. I've had vitriol since he left from those who support Boris Johnson and think he should still be there. So you can't win. What I would say is two things. Firstly, I think it's right that Boris Johnson resigned. You can't keep giving oxygen to the opposition and the media. And I think that, we'd run out of road in terms of moral authority. That was my personal view. And I think the second thing is that people have to make the decision themselves now in terms of how they vote. We are where we are. We've moved on from Boris Johnson. We have two candidates that aren't Boris Johnson. Therefore, we need to unite behind either of them and make this work. And that's what we're going to do.